Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you here this morning. And we have a special program this morning I'm sure you will enjoy. I'd like to introduce Jerry Fogg. Jerry Fogg is from the Yankton Sioux tribe, a member of the Yankton Sioux tribe. And he really wants to teach the culture, the Native American culture and history of his people through his art. Now, he was actually born in Los Angeles, California, but he was raised down at Fort Thompson, if you know where Fort Thompson is, down the Stephan Mission, that area of the state south of Highmore, and on the Crow Creek Reservation. He attended the Flandre Indian School, and that's where I first met him. He was one of my students the first year I taught at the Flandre Indian School. And also he went to Dakota State College as well. Jerry is an artist all the way through. He's not only a visual artist, he also is a lead singer and percussionist for the rock band Native Soul. And currently he lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'd like to introduce Jerry Fogg.
Good morning. Of course, my name is Jerry Fogg. I'm a Yankton Nakota Oyate, which is Yankton Sioux in layman's terms. My Indian name is Degrees of Tatanka, which translates into bull ghost. And being that named, I generally tend to work a lot with buffaloes. And people say, well, that's a lot of bull. But I tried, like they said, I tried to be a teacher at the same time of being an artist. I want so much of my art to do other things other than just hang on a person's wall. I always say my biggest happiness is for someone to purchase a piece of my art and then be able to tell people every time they have visitors, let me tell you about this piece of artwork I purchased. And then they have that story to tell. A lot of my artwork is generally done to where it's an event, past, present, and possibly the future. That way I can say it's so much more than just a piece of art. You can go and actually Google it and find out more information about what I'm trying to get across here. You don't have to listen to me all day. And among our people and everything else, we always have a little humor. And I would like to start this day with a little humor, just to relax things up. This young Native American man, he walks up to the elder, spiritual leader, medicine man of the tribe. And he says, can you help me? I'm having trouble with my hearing. I'm having a problem with my hearing. So the medicine man reaches forward and he puts his hands on each side of his head, over his ears. He looks to the sky and he sings the song. And right when he's done with the song, he pulls his hands back. And he says, how's your hearing now? And the guy says, I don't know, it's not till Monday down at the courthouse. But a lot of times that's the way we're classified stuff. But every presentation I have in speech and communication with people, I like to be a little bit traditional. Not to really prove anything, but because I feel it's right. And one of the things that we do is we welcome people. And when we welcome people from the four directions of our universe. And we offer tobacco, because tobacco is a universal thing among all people. We always start out with West. We offer tobacco to those from the West, which is the color black, Sapa. And that represents the night when the stars come out, which we also try to learn our new knowledge from, and knowledge that has been there since the beginning of time. And it also represents coming out of Peshla, where our creation was in the cave. We've come out of the darkness. That's where we start, from the West. Then we offer tobacco to those who come from the North, which is red, Luta, which is the blood of our people that has been spread on the ground and seeped into Mother Earth and has become part of the Catalanite rock and known as pipestone, which we make our sacred pipes from. And we use those pipes in celebration and honoring and so many different things, meetings, before we go out, before we do anything. We smoke the pipe and offer and hope for better things. Then we turn to the east. We offer tobacco to those who come, which is the color yellow. Hey, the color yellow is where the sun rises. That brings life to everything on Mother Earth. It furnishes what we all need to survive. And last but not least, we offer tobacco to the south, which is the color ska, white, which is a very important direction to us, because it's where we all go when we make our journey. When our time has come and ended on Mother Earth, we go to the south and we meet our relatives who are waiting for us once more. Then we offer tobacco to the sky, Ho, which is there and breathes. We breathe the air which it offers us. And we offer tobacco to Mother Earth, which is the color brown, Mokhbi, which we walk upon and live upon, grow upon, advance upon, have good times upon, and we pass upon. Now that we've welcomed each other all here, we purify in the essence of having the stories come out. We smudge. We smudge for cleansing, the stories that cleanse, that come forward. There is truth to them. There is something in them that sustains what we have to learn, what we have to do. I asked an elderly one time, I said, I've heard about 7 different stories of white buffalo calf. Tell me, which one is the truth? And he said, we are storytellers. We always try to tell what we feel. So that makes them all true. No matter which story you tell, how you tell it, and who you tell it to, what you feel is that it's true. So it is. And we also smudge for many different things. Getting up in the morning, greeting the sun, saying goodnight to the moon, weddings and parties, birth, so many things. And we even go as far as smudging just to smudge. It's just to be part of who we are. Down to business. Okay, let's see if I can do this. This is the first time I've ever done this. There's many things that go on in this world that we can pray or we can hope for the better. you know, little things, big things. And right now, today in this world, there's a couple things that I would like to ask a moment, just a moment of silence for. One of them is our missing, murdered Indigenous women and children that disappear daily. I hope and pray that someday they will come home and it will never happen again. The other one is the COVID that we lived through just to find another virus has raised its ugly head. So I ask just a moment of your time, please. I don't know how to really express these things other than just tell you about them and come across and move on. But as there are stars in heaven, I made this piece in contention with what the white man has done to the American buffalo back in the early 1800s. Today, he's working hard by ranching with them and trying to bring them back, which is a good thing. But a long time ago, when the generals got together, they said, well, we can't defeat them. You know, we can't put them out with diseases. They were trying to eliminate us. And they figured, well, the one way they can eliminate us is take the food supply away. Take their supply away of what they live by and how they live. And this piece represents that story. As you look later on, I hope that you walk through and check out the pictures closely. There's many things in there that will give you more information about what I'm trying to say and put across. But this piece here is dedicated to the buffalo in itself, to Tatanka, which without we would not survive. We would not be here. And as you get a closer view of this thing, I used a lot of different materials in here. The sacred cross, medicine wheels for the prayer to the buffalo, the moons at the bottom showing time that has passed. And I mean, you know, the story is really sad about how the trains would stop. People would stick their guns out the windows and just shoot a whole herd down, and then pull their guns in and the train would move on, just for sport. But as you see in the center, what looks like buffalo horns, those are actually talons from a bird. What I try to do and install in my stuff is use materials, not to represent what they are, but to represent something that I'm trying to get the meaning across. Now here's one that's really touches my heart. I'm a member of the Keepers of the Story, which we are hired by the South Dakota Humanities of Scholars. And we go around and we talk. And the subject that I have chosen with my partner is we talk about the Hiawatha Indian Insane Asylum. Now, I don't know if a lot of you have heard about that, but it sits just outside of Canton, right outside of Canton. It was the world's only Native American insane asylum. And this is one thing that I talked about Googling. Please Google. You can hear the whole story, because the whole story I could sit here for a week and talk about. But it was atrocious. It was awful. And the only thing that it had to give up in the end was a cemetery of 121, which now is 124 Native Americans who have died there. And one thing in our language is we don't have a word for insane. The only thing we come close to is crazy, which is witkotko. That means you're chasing a horse and you plan to outrun it. You gotta be crazy. Yeah. But yes, this piece here is really one of my pieces that I did for the group. And it has won awards. It won awards out in Rapid City for Best in Show. for their People, Wind, and Water event. This one here, I Am Waiting. It's a story about long ago when the government built the dams in the 50s, all through the middle of South Dakota. They flooded out everything. They flooded out villages, they flooded out trees, they flooded out land, hunting properties. They flooded everything out to make their, what today we call recreational places. But in doing so, a woman came forward and put up a lawsuit against the United States government and Corps of Engineers. It was called the IIM account, which is Individual Indian Monies, which would have been given out and dispersed for the reimbursement of what the Corps of Engineers and government did building these dams. Many years went by. Finally, a judge said, I'm tired of this. Pay the Native American, which came up to a lot of money. But when it finally came down to an end of process and education and all this stuff, the money goes to. Everybody got a $105 check. But still, I always feel that that shouldn't have really come to us. That was our ancestors that had to suffer through that. But I just fell short of getting a check. So when I did this piece, I call it I Am Waiting, waiting for that money. And the sheet that's behind it of currency, I got that from the US Mint. They give out 1s, 2s, 5s, 10s, 20s, but not 50s for some kind of a safeguard thing of homeland security, they told me. This piece is one of my kind of favorite pieces. It describes us. If you ever want to describe Native American or even human, this is the picture, because it's got the hoop of life inside the middle there. The 4 on each end up there is our relatives, are there to guide over us and protect us. And the hoop in the middle is our lifetime span, where we're born up at the center and we go our way around. And all the feathers you see down below is what we go through in life. We all do this. Pay your insurance, pay your rent, pay your utilities, pay your babysitter if you can catch her, and do what you got to do in life. And then it comes back up around the other end to where it meets as a whole hoop in our life. And the ones that match in the middle is our inner self, organs. They're all the same among all of us. And then the little circle inside the big hoop that's empty, that represents our soul, which we all believe we have. And it is a good thing we do that. But like I said, it's one of my favorite pieces because it does explain a lot about who I am and who we are. This piece, A Soldier's Premonition, I'll tell you a little story about this piece. I was in an antique store in Sioux Falls on 14th in Minnesota, or 18th in Minnesota. And I was going through the Post magazines because I'm a Beatle fanatic. And I knew the Beatles had a couple covers in the Post magazine. So I was looking through and I found this paper bag. So I opened up the paper bag and this was folded twice in there. I pulled it out and I looked at it and it took my breath away. It was an actual document from 1876 for the Missouri Valley Life Insurance Company. I went up to the cashier and I said, how much are you asking for this? And she said, well, where did you find it? I said, I found it among the Post magazines. Oh, we get $1 for those, so I'm gonna have $1 for it. So I took it home and I was scared to put artwork on it. But I figured the only way that I could really make something understandable about this piece is to do the assemblage and artwork on it. And you can see, you know, as you look at it out there, it represents the Little Bighorn, Custer's Last Stand in 1876. And my story on it is there's names on here, a young soldier in the cavalry. The orders came down to go out and round up all the hostile Indians and bring them back to the reservation. Well, he figured, I'll be smart. I'll go out and get an insurance policy. So he went out and got a life insurance policy, and then the word came down for the cavalry to go to the Little Bighorn, which we all know none of them ever came back. So I ended up with the life insurance policy. This piece here I call South Dakota because that's just exactly what it represents, the state of South Dakota. The centerpiece is the state seal made of brass. And my ideal behind this was the arrows represent not just Native Americans, but every nationality. We go out from the state to journey forth to make our lives, do what we want to do and have to do to make a better lives. But we don't all succeed. So you see the one arrows that are coming back in. It's just a good thing that more are going out than are coming back. But you can always come home to the state of South Dakota. We'll always welcome you. You can always come home. That shows a little bit closer view. And at the bottom is a beaded red strap that I put a design in there to follow the red road, along with ribbons that go outward. And you'll see that out there too as you look. Here's the one we took a moment of quiet for, a moment of silence. This is MMIW, the We Are Standing, the murdered, missing Indigenous women. And I always add children in there because that's where it seems like it's going now. And this piece here, as you look closely at it out there and you can see more of it, those are actual braids of hair in it coming down from the center. And those are women, 7 women from the 7 Osete, Sokoan 7 council fires represented there. And I put them on an aviation map. That aviation map is from the 60s in the Fargo area. And it's a piece that I put together again to illustrate and tell people more than just a piece of art that would go on the wall. It makes you think about what's happening to our young. And this is just not Native Americans. You know, believe me, everyone has to be on the watch out because it could happen to anybody. This one here I've had for a while, but it's still a beautiful piece, I think. My aunt made the star quilt, and it's dedicated, it's called Woman. It's dedicated to the Native American military women who fought beside their men. I mean, it goes back in history, the stories that I've been told and what I have read, that when you've seen the warriors charge forward that didn't have horses, the women were right beside them, if not outrunning them, to meet the enemy. It was such a thing that whenever anything was threatened, every eligible person in the village took up arms and fought for the freedom of who we were and what we have. And as you look closely to this one too, and I always say that look closely because I work with very small things a lot. Up on top there's cockle shells cut in half, representing the 38 Dakota that were hung in Mankato. I use that a lot in my artwork, basically for a filament and also for the idea of the 38, letting people know that that story exists out there. Now, as for the women veterans, I also go with the men veterans. Our men, all our men that have fought in these wars. And this piece here is a full breastplate of bone. And let me put a little note on the side. When I work with things in my artwork, I try to stay true to form. I don't use plastic beads. I use glass beads. I don't use plastic bone pipe. Those are all actual bone, you know, and feathers. I don't use plastic factory made. Those are actual feathers, and so forth and so forth. Insignias, actually insignias from somebody who had them at one time, and now I use them. Tobacco ties, like at the two red ones on the bottom. When I speak of those who have passed into the spirit world, I offer tobacco through those tobacco ties. Now there's actual tobacco in those. It's not a marble or a rock. It's actual tobacco because it's tradition. And I love to stay with tradition. But getting back to the story, these breastplate bone pipe beads are spaced a little bit apart. That means that they weren't fully protected, these soldiers that fought. They didn't have the full amount of backing that they deserved. And by the way, this piece represents the Korean War and the Vietnam War. You know, they were spat upon when they came home. There was no ticker tape. And like I see on the news and I read in books, a lot of them are shell-shocked and not given help. A lot of them are out there homeless and not showing any gratitude. And I don't know why not. I just don't know why not, but it's something that should be. But the otters there, the ermine otters, they represent, as you see in pictures, the Native Americans would wear them in their hair. The story behind that is that King George of France was paying money for Indian scalps. He was paying money for people who said that they killed so many Indians, but he didn't have proof. So he said, bring me scalps. So people started scalping Native Americans. That's where that all started. Now the big story is oh, the Indians are going to scalp us. So anyway, what they would do is they'd braid their hair and they'd put it in these otter things. And they believed that hiding their hair would save their hair from anybody scalping, as they'd say. Now, this is a piece you're going to have to look at yourself out there because for me to explain it, I'm only explaining it. These were actual United States stamps back in the 60s. And what I call this "don't fence me in" means that that top layer of stamps going across, those are mint, never been used. The next line going down is they've been used, but they've been partially stamped, canceled, just a line or two. And then the next line, there's a couple more lines on there. Then finally, the bottom line, as you see it out there in the gallery, it's been stamped pretty good and it looks like they're in a fence. So it's "don't fence me in" was the name of that. Because long time ago, we never fenced in the buffalo. They roamed free. And that's the way it should have been, but too many people are claiming properties. This is mine. This is mine. This belongs to me. You can't come here. You can't go there. But I guess that's what they call advancement. This piece here is my wrist hurts every time I talk about it. It's Mount Dakota. And people ask me, how long did that take you to do that? And I tell them 3.5 years. But the thing of it is 9 months it sat in the closet, 2 months it was under the bed, 3 months it was on the table. But actually it did take me about 2.5 years. And when you look at this picture, there's not a line in it. It's called pointillism. Some professional art teachers call it Dadaism, but I call it pointillism. You take and you kind of just draft out where what is supposed to be, and then you start dotting. And you start dotting until you get all the portraits in there and all the birds and everything else. And the birds are actually flying in the 4 sacred directions. But when I'm done with that, I take my hand and I just smudge over the whole picture to get all that filament of lead in there. And then I take my eraser and I go and I erase parts of the picture away to where it's highlights, they call it. You'll see that, well, I guess you'll see all these out there. Now this is no ears. This is the pipeline. I'm sure you've seen on the news a couple years back, the protests that were going on day after day, the hardships that were felt, and the way people were treated, trying to protect Mother Earth. And I myself, I say it's been proven because there's so many breaks and land ruined for what they even got done and what's going on today. But our people, it's a picture of Dakota Territory, and you can imagine a pipe that goes right down through it. And our ancestors in a silhouette with our ones that have passed on behind them, supporting, giving help to them is in there. And when they did this, they called that pipeline the Black Snake. So what I went and did, I kind of had to think about it a lot, but like I said, I try to be true to my tradition and true to the picture. So I actually went out and found a rattlesnake hide and I painted it black to represent the black snake that they were trying to lay upon Mother Earth. This one here is dedicated to our sports. Now it's time for the sports. This is called Relay Oyate Way. It's kind of a thing in the last 5 years who has peeked its head again that we used to do many, many years ago. And what it is you jump on a horse, you stand in line, and when you hear the sound of the gun or the arrow hit the wood or whatever, you run, you jump on your horse, and you go around the track twice. And then when you get done after your second time, you jump off your horse and run over to another horse. And then around the track twice you go. And there's a lot of complications in this. The horses get spooked, they won't cooperate, they buck, they all kinds of things they do. But that was just a sport that we used to do a long time ago. And just for, like I said before when I started my program, we are humorous people. A lot of places have went and added things to it. You run and jump on your horse and you go around twice, and then you come and for a certain amount of distance, you got to run with your girlfriend in a wheelbarrow. And then you let that go, and then you go and jump on another horse and go around twice. And some of them even had to piggyback their girlfriends and hold them in a certain way. And it's kind of gets comical sometimes because the girl falls out of the wheelbarrow sometimes, and you just try to do your best at what you do. But the basic part of this was the sports that we had before, of what we did for entertainment. This is one of my newest ones. I just finished before we set up the show. And I call this Sioux Code Talkers. It's an actual hand drum that sends out messages when we sing our songs. They have meaning. And you feel that drumbeat just like your drumbeat of your heart. And it sends that message out. That's what the Code Talkers did in World War I and World War II. And why we get to sit here today with freedom among ourselves. And I am allowed to talk. It's a nice little piece. I used rivets, thumbtack brass rivets. I put in the drum head and I put the insignia in to show the military part of it. And we send out code talkers, which of course the enemy couldn't break our language at that time. Now I suppose they all talk it. I hear Native Americanism over in Germany is the biggest thing nowadays. And this one here is Star Prayer. This is about the knowledge of what the stars have to offer. We have learned things, being, a school here and everything. We learn things. We learn as much as we can. And some of us absorb it, some of us don't. Some of us know almost everything, but we will not know everything as long as we haven't figured out the knowledge of the stars that have to offer, the place that they are every night, every year, every century, every era. They're out there. They have something to say. And I can't remember exactly what my astronomy is, but I believe that it takes several million years for a light of one star to get to Earth. At least I know it's a very, very long time. And for something to be coming here that long, we have to at least try to understand it more than we do now. And then the centerpiece is a copper token of a Native American praying to the stars. And that's where he gets the star prayer. Because we all want to know what the stars have to offer. This one here is Blehemiche Buffalo Nation. Blehemiche means strong, strong Buffalo Nation. And I did this piece because I was at an art show one time and a woman walked up with a little box. She said, "Could you use these?" And I opened it up and I said, "Plastic." And then I went and I picked one up, and by goodness, every one of them was cast iron steel, these little buffalo heads. So I said, yes, I can surely use them. So I went and I painted them, illustrated them, and put them in there in a row of 7. And they represent the Osete Sekoing, the 7 council fires. Not only us have that, but the buffalo have it because they live with us as brothers and sisters, part of our lives, which help us to sustain in what we are. And like I say, as you look out there, you can see the design work a little bit better on each buffalo. And this one has a lot to do with Bounty of Scalp. It's kind of a remake of the story I told you about King George offering money for scalps. And I've always thought that bringing something back from what you've done is kind of like, I don't know, a hobby or a tradition or such, because even our soldiers brought a lot back from their enemies that they had killed. And I don't know if they still do it today or you're allowed to or not, but it's just that same story that I told you before. And one thing that I had to add that not really has much to do with this, but I feel that the reason why the Native American came over to Christianity so fast was because the white man set him down and said, "I can offer you eternal life." Well, I think they meant that they were going to live forever. That's what I thought, so that's why I figure that they came across so fast and so eagerly, which wasn't the case. And we are back, I believe. Was that it? Or maybe not. No, it wasn't. Okay. Hey. This piece here, again, has to do with the murdered and missing Indigenous women in and around us. And basically, it has to do with the steel conchos that go down the center. That's the trail home. That's the pathway that they have to find. Because I feel it has to be a two-way thing. They got to want to come home. They got to have to come home, and they will come home. Because, we can't be doing this no more. It's a tragic thing. Like right now, a young girl sitting somewhere in a room crying, not knowing what's going to happen in her life. We just got to tend to it and stop it. This is kind of my religious part here. I was walking one day and I found a twig, and it was in a perfect shape of a cross. It even had a little knobblet on the top to make it look like the head. So I put it on a wooden cross, on a little wooden stick cross, and then I put it on a metal cross to show that the culture of religion has come from nature to industrial and has survived many years. And the one thing about this that I have to say is the writing on the sheets in the background, that comes from an old Native Bible, Native American Bible. It's all in Native American. And like I said before, I don't settle for runoffs, copies, or anything. Those are the actual pages out of that Bible when you're thinking about purchasing. This one here is We Came Here to Vote. It's a long piece that I had in a frame that I found that it fit perfectly in. And this was right after Obama and when the Clinton-Trump election came across. I'm not a politician. I don't pick either side. I just hope that the best one wins that can do something for everybody. That's my philosophy on politics. So when I made this one, I got the red marks in there. These Native Americans have come to vote, and they're following the red road, which is the right road, to make their vote and make their vote count. It's a nice little piece too. Oh, geez, I was speaking too fast. I asked her before the show even started if I should even hang this one up, and she said, by all means. It's my version of, this was after the election, of course. It's my version of where the Constitution has gone. And if there's any Star Trek fans or Star Wars fans in here, it has gone to the dark side. But it's something that I just put together to show how I feel about things, because things were getting not great. And even the printing is in orange. Now this year is a buyback program. A while back, about 2 years ago, the tribes and government got together and decided to try to buy our land back because we got casinos now and we got money. Well, we tried to buy our land back, and the moral of the story on this one, it's just a small piece and it's something that I put together, was they stole the land for nothing. And when they wanted to sell it back to you, they wanted a dime and a dollar. You know, it's just, how did it get so valuable from the time that you took it to the time that we want to buy it back? And the currency in there is a novelty. I went out of my way this time for this because it was just so much of a different thing. The actual bill of that bill there, I got one, it's about that big. They're called saddle blankets. And it's the only paper currency in America that's ever had a Native American on it. And so I just put that together out of giggles. This piece here, First Arrival, is based on a part that, it's a Hiawatha piece. I found out that when they brought the Native Americans to the asylum, they brought them by train. And it's an actual fact that they chained the Native American up between the boxcars, between the passenger cars. They wouldn't allow them in the cars. And I even searched for it and found a ticket for passage for one Native American platform only. You know, that's just another part of the story of the insane asylum that is told. And those are Native American pennies that are Indian head pennies that are on there. They actually should be in between the squares, but it looks better this way. And maybe that's it. Ah, yay. Now I'm scared to death. Is there any questions? Yes.
I was curious about whether you use models for the Rushmore.
Oh, yes. Those are actual chiefs. I've seen about 5 different versions of that. And the 4 other than mine are not all Sioux. They're Nez Perce, Apache, and so on. I used all Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, Native American chiefs that are on there, which is Gull, as in Washington's place. He was a warrior. Sintaglashka, Spotted Tail, was right beside him in Jefferson's area. He was an educator, just like Jefferson was. And then Sitting Bull, Tatanka Iyotanka. He was a spiritual medicine man in Teddy Roosevelt's position. And then in Abraham Lincoln's position was Machbialuta, Red Cloud, which was an elderly leader of his people. But that's who I used as models. Thank you.
You began your presentation telling us about the colors, the 4 directions of the colors.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed as you were showing your work that I didn't see blues or greens in your works, and I'm wondering if those colors, the 4 directions, do you consciously kind of incorporate that into your work?
The reason why I do it anyway, I mean, and some others do it too, because I was told this, is that the 4 red, yellow, black, and white directions, north, east, south, west, you can stand up and walk, run, jog, skip in those directions. But when you're on Mother Earth, you can't just stand there and go. And now, if any of you can fly, show me how. But that's the reason why I don't incorporate the blue and the brown in there, because you cannot go in those directions. You can only honor them and pray to them and respect them. Thank you.
So when red appears in you use red a lot, it seems to me.
Mhm.
Does that go back to the directions, or is that just you like red?
Well, I do like red. It is my favorite color, and it represents so much of who we are. You know, our leaders are called red this, red that, red this, red that. You know, and it's a universal color, as in nature of the fruits that we have, many different shades. You know, it may look black, but it's still so deep of a red. And the pipestone is one of the biggest factors, because the pipestone is basically the most of what we are as a people. It was given to us by white buffalo calf woman. And the little story about that is I won't go into the whole thing, because you could Google that too. But to cut it down to a small essence, white buffalo calf woman came and appeared to 2 warriors. We were starving. And this was before horses were here, because educators know the Spaniards brought the horses over. So we had to make do with just what we hunted on foot. And they were out hunting. And we were starving, and the hope looked lost. We couldn't find nothing. And she appeared to them, and she gave them the pipe. And she said, smoke the pipe for 4 days, and you will be saved. You will survive. And, you know, back then, you know, what someone said, we listened to, we obeyed, well, not obeyed, but we did, because it was the thing to do. So they came back, and she disappeared into the heavens, turned into a white buffalo and ascended. They brought the pipe back, told the chief, and he says, all right, we must do that. So they smoked the pipe for 4 days and 4 nights. And then on the 5th day, the earth started to shake. And of course, they thought it was an earthquake. And somebody come running, Tatanka, Tatanka. And they all went up there on that hill, and there was so many buffaloes, it looked like the whole earth was moving. And that's how she saved us. And that's one of the colors of the pipestone from the pipe. It's red. Let's have coffee.
Well, thank you, Jerry. This was an amazing talk, and all the thought and work that you put into these constructions are just amazing. And you can go and spend hours in his exhibit here at the South Dakota Art Museum, and it's amazing work. And I thank you for it. And I failed to introduce myself at the beginning. I figure everybody knows me, but I'm John Richtrick, and I'm the vice president of the Guild. And so I'm the one that plans all these programs. And so it was really wonderful to be able to bring a past student of mine from eons ago to present his program, his artwork here at the South Dakota Art Museum. So it's wonderful. And I'd like to present him with a little token of our appreciation of his for his talk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry.
One thing I forgot to mention that goes without saying is I'd like to thank the South Dakota Museum of Art for having me here and giving me an opportunity to bring what I do to a presidency of eyes. Thank you so much.
One thing I do have to say is that he did exhibit at the South Dakota Memorial Arts Center, which this was originally called. He did exhibit some pieces. Joe Stewart, at the time I was working at the Flander Indian School, invited us to exhibit some of the students' work here. And so he's actually exhibited in this building way back in '73.